Hi, I'm here to bring you the latest news. And it is with great sadness that I share with you today the news that Agnes Gund has died at the age of 87. She was an influential patron of contemporary art who really transformed our world of collecting. Her philanthropy helped museums, artists, and scholars to realize important projects which they may not have been able to do otherwise. And she also mentored many young collectors, and even those of us in the media who have gone on to champion the same causes as her. She was a passionate and generous supporter of public education about art, which is so vital. Without people like Agnes coming forward, there wouldn't be as much knowledge about contemporary art in the world, and certainly younger generations will be less informed about what has happened in the last few decades. So she will be hugely missed by everybody. For those of you who may not know her story, perhaps you are newer to the world of art. Agnes Gund was born in 1933. She had a privileged upbringing. Her father owned a bank, which lent money to museums for them to purchase art. And this gave Agnes access to some pretty incredible works of art from a very early stage. This also instilled in her a love of modern art. She said that when she was 6 years old, she was taken to see the 1939 39th Street show, and this made a big impression on her, as did the MoMA show of the same year, which included Picasso's Guernica. She went to Bennington College in Vermont, but then took a break from her studies to marry and raise a family. But she returned to education later in life and got a Master-Jes degree in art history from New York University in 1972. That was the same year that she began to buy art for her own collection. She had known Dan Flavin since the 1960s, and she bought one of his early fluorescent light sculptures in 1971. At first, she mainly collected minimalist artists such as Donald Judd, Carl Andre, and Sol LeWitt. But as her wealth grew, she expanded her collecting interests. In 1981, she purchased a Roy Lichtenstein painting called Masterpiece. And from that moment on, she became a passionate supporter of pop art, buying paintings by Andy Warhol, Claes Oldenburg, Tom Wesselmann, and many others. In the following years, she added to these areas of collecting, but she also broadened it out further, buying paintings by Jean-Michel Basquiat, Julian Schnabel, Anselm Kiefer, Cindy Sherman, and many, many more. She even bought work by artists who were considered too controversial for other collectors or too expensive, such as Chris O'Feely, who had been hugely vilified in Britain after painting the Virgin Mary with elephant dung. So what made Agnes's collecting career so unique? Well, it was more than just the breadth of her collecting. She wasn't interested in building a collection for herself. She was interested in building a collection for the world. And so she started to lend works from her collection to museums almost as soon as she bought them. She told the New York Times in 2004, "I never saw a work of art as something to possess. It was always something to share." In 2004, she gifted 167 works from her collection to MoMA, and this included paintings by Andy Warhol, Georgia O'Keeffe, and Jackson Pollock, as well as the entire body of work by one artist, Dan Flavin. This gift was worth over $100 million, making it the largest single donation of art in the history of the museum at that time. She said, "When I gave my collection to MoMA, it was because I thought it should belong to all people, not just a privileged few." And with this in mind, she set up the Agnes Gund Foundation for Art and Education in 1988. The foundation continued to lend works of art to museums for exhibitions and also supported artists in their practices through the Art for AIDS program, which raised funds for research and treatment. And in 2018, the foundation gave $100 million to start the Studio Museum in Harlem's Capital campaign. This is one of my favorite museums in New York. They have an amazing program to support living artists. And without this gift from Agnes, they may not have been able to expand into such a beautiful new building and continue the vital work that they do for the community. As well as supporting museums and artists, she was also a mentor to many collectors. I remember meeting her in the early 2000s and being struck by how down-to-earth she was, despite her extraordinary wealth. I think she had recently seen an interview with me on the BBC about my collection, and she invited me for tea. We sat and talked for hours, and she advised me on how to grow my collection, what to buy, what not to buy, and most importantly, how to look after the work once I had it. She didn't care if I bought something from her or not. She just cared about helping to build a strong collection for the future. Over the years, we have shared many meals together, mostly with other young collectors. And each time she was generous with her time, with her advice, and with her friendship. It was wonderful to be part of her gang. She used to host regular dinners in her apartment, and it was quite a tight group of people. There were maybe no more than 10 or 12 regulars who would get together and discuss art and ideas. Some of the most exciting conversations I've ever had about art happened around that dining room table. While she enjoyed buying art, she hated the auction scene, and she rarely sold things from her collection. She believed that things should be held in trust for the future, and she felt uncomfortable with the idea of making money from art. She only sold things if it was to help another museum to acquire a piece. For example, in 2015 she sold a painting by Mark Rothko called Orange, Red, Yellow. And she used this money to help MoMA to buy a sculpture by Isamu Noguchi called News. She said at the time, "Acquiring a major sculpture by Mr. Noguchi has been a long-held goal of the museum. And I am thrilled that the proceeds of the sale of my Rothko will enable them to do so." She had a wonderful sense of humor and a sharp intellect. I loved spending time with her. She will be greatly missed by many people. I feel incredibly lucky to have known her and to have learned from her. If you would like to learn more about collecting art, please do subscribe to the channel. You can also follow me on social media. I will be sharing updates there as well as I learn more about the details of her funeral and any other relevant information. Please do share your memories of Agnes in the comments below and what you think she might have been most proud of during her lifetime. I know that she would have been very proud of the global community that she helped to build, and she would be very happy to see so many of us talking about her today. Thank you.